All right, guys, we find ourselves here at the Jeep. As you can see, we've taken off our fenders, front and rear. And what we're going to do is, if you have, you'll take off your fenders. If you have the stock fenders, discard the fenders, the inner fenders, set those aside. If you plan on cutting them down to reuse them later on, I won't be doing that because I have aftermarket inner fenders. But if you have anything fender-wise, inner fenders, go ahead and take everything off. Clean up the area where you're going to be doing the work at. As you see here, we got them off, got it all cleaned up. And now what we're going to do is we're fixing to get started. So whenever we want to install something, a lot of times we get what they call the instructions. And I'm a firm believer that we go by instructions when we're doing things. Not everybody's like that, but what I want to do for this video is I want to go by the instructions the best way I can. And if I have to veer from them, I'll let you know. But I want to go by Prestige Off-Road's installation instructions, so therefore we'll know that anybody can do this. If you're a man like me, a lot of times you won't read the instructions, you'll just wing it. So I guess that's what I'm here for, is that if you ever want to wing it on these fenders and you wonder what step you might have missed, you can come in here and watch this video, and because I'm going by the instructions, you can kind of pick up where you're lost at. So first thing first, I always go through my instruction manual and I always make sure that I have all my parts. I've done that. I have everything that's in here that says that I should have on my parts list. I have my fenders, I have my brackets, I have my lights, I have everything that it says I should have. So the next step is we look at step one. It says remove your fender flares. I've removed the fender flares. Next step it's telling us to do is to actually put the fender flares on the Jeep, and because we're going to have to actually do some drilling with this. So basically you're going to put the fenders on the Jeep with a couple of bolts, and then we're going to mark out the holes we need to drill out to make the fenders fit properly. So stay tuned, let's go ahead and get that started. All right, guys, we've got the fender basically bolted on. To this point, we have to bolt it on, make sure that what holes line up, get those lined up, and then we have to actually mark out some of the holes that are not there and drill those holes. So what I've done is I've came in here, and I'm OCD. So I basically went through every hole that lines up, and I put a bolt in it because I want to make sure that all the holes are lined up. So what I'll do is I'll go over here, and I think it says like there's 6 holes that have to be drilled out. So you want to mark here, here, mark here, mark here, mark here, and then of course mark here. This hole right here, I'll explain it to you later on. It's basically for a bracket. If you intend on using your inner fenders that you already have from the factory and cutting them down, you will use this hole for a bracket. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start marking some holes and getting them drilled. All right, guys, what I've done is I've made my marks all the way down, and then what I did was I came back and I center punched the center of the holes, and so now I'm about to drill them out. You just want to basically drill them the same size as what your hole is for the rest of your bolts. All right, guys, what I do is I drill it out with a pilot hole. Any small drill bit will do. You want to basically just make something where it'll start the hole for you, and then you'll chase it out with a 13/32 drill bit. This is the one that I'm going to use. So stay tuned and I'll show you what it looks like once I'm done. All right, we're back now. I've pilot holed and drilled it to a 13/32. And you can see them going down the extra holes that we've drilled out. So the next step on the instructions says to install the bracket that goes into the gap here where the firewall and the fender is. So that is this bracket. We're going to install that in here. Basically, it's going to be facing just like this in the hole. So give me 1 second. Let me get everything together, and I'll show you what we're supposed to do. All right, so step 3 is installing the mounting bracket. What you're going to do first is you're going to bring this in to line the holes up here and down here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to have to go in here and make the marks where it needs to be at, and you're going to basically drill through the inner part of the Jeep there. And what that's going to do is you're going to bolt it here, and you'll bolt it in there, and that holds that's another mounting bracket there to add to the stability of the fenders. So let me get in here and make some marks, and we'll get it installed, and I'll show you what we got. All right, guys, here's the mounting bracket. You know, you've drilled your holes out here, drill through inside, use the bracket itself as a template from this hole to that hole, from this hole to that hole. You'll use the button head screws or bolts, and you'll put a washer on the front, lock washer on the back, and then your nut, and you'll tighten it all up. There's the back side, and it'll basically it's in there. It's not going anywhere. So we've got the step 3 of the bracket being installed. So let's move to step 4. All right, step 4 is to get these clips onto your mounting bracket B. The one we just put in, the inner fender part, is actually mounting bracket A. It's a smaller one. Mounting bracket B actually goes up to the subframe, like so. And you'll put these clips in those bigger holes right there, and the actual fender will screw through into the subframe bracket. The bottom holes here will line up with the subframe whenever you go to the bottom. So let's put these clips on here and get out to the Jeep. All right, guys, we find ourselves out here at the Jeep. This is the subframe bracket. What you're going to do is you're going to basically slide it up into place here, and it's going to go in behind these holes. And you'll see that they're going to line up. You'll use a screwdriver or something to kind of make sure all the holes line up. But first things first is you've got some bolts in the bag, but I'm just using the stock bolts that come out to the subframe because they're what I have. They're what I plan on using. So basically you'll take your 10mm bolts and you'll stick them back in here and secure them back to the inner subframe. All right, YouTube, we got this secured to the subframe of the Jeep here. So our next step is basically you just want to make sure these holes line up. Everything, all the little screw holes where the little clips are at, you want to make sure they're where they're supposed to be at. Just to make sure, because whenever you put your fender in here, it's going to actually, everything's going to line up and screw into these holes. And then the other ones, you're going to use actual nuts on the back of your bolts. So let's go ahead and get the fender out here and get it started on the Jeep. All right, so I've got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 installed. They are in the subframe. They're not tightened up. They're in there snug like, but I wanted to get those in, and then what I'm fixing to do is go ahead and go through all these other holes and put my nuts and bolts in them, and then we're going to get those all lined up right, get them tightened up right, and then we'll be ready to wrap the front fender install up. All right, YouTube, we've got the front fender flare installed. Everything's tightened up, everything's tied up. And step 5 also gives instructions on to install these brackets. One on the driver's side, one on the passenger side. And what these are used for is basically you come in and you bolt them in right here on this one hole that was off by itself. I told you I'd explain it to you later. Well, now's later. These brackets basically go on the inside, and then you bolt these through there onto the fender flare. And what this does is, if you decide to reuse your inner fenders and you cut them, you can actually put these behind there. There's 1, 2, 3 right here. 3 brackets. I'm sorry, it was 3 brackets on each side. And what it does is the plastic comes up in here, and you have other screws that you can actually go through your inner fender into these, and it holds it tight. So if you don't have any aftermarket inner fenders and you want to cut down your stock inner fenders, be my guest, and you can actually go in and install these on the 3 places on step 5. Also on step 5, it gives instructions to put a bolt through here to tighten down to go from the fender to this bracket right here. I'm going to actually be cutting this off in the near future, so I won't need to bolt those brackets up. It's just an added part that will actually make it more durable. But as I stated before, I'm going to cut this bracket off that's in my inner fender right there that come from the stock fenders. I'm going to cut that off, so I'll be skipping that step as well. All right, everybody. Here is the front fender installed complete. Step 6 says to tighten up all the remaining bolts and to make sure they're good and tight. And that completes the front fender install from Prestige Off-Road. So if you'll stay with me, we're going to move on to the back. All right, guys. Prestige Off-Road, rear fender installation. Let's get started. First off, remove your fender as well. Like we stated in the beginning of the video, is remove the fenders. You don't have an inner fender that goes with these, but I've actually got Prestige Off-Road inner fenders in behind my fenders. So they're not protruding out anyway, so they shouldn't be in the way. As you can see, I've already got some nut certs installed from some previous fenders that I have. Luck may have it that actually some of those I'll be able to reuse for these fenders. But you will be drilling out and putting nut certs in for these fenders. One tool that I recommend that you get is a nut cert tool. That is going to be a lifesaver for you. A nut cert tool, actually, once you drill it out, you can basically screw it on the end of it, slide it in there, and you squeeze, and it crimps this in behind here, and it actually saves you a lot of time and headache. So I recommend before you even get started doing anything with a nut cert to go out somewhere and buy a nut cert tool. So I'm going to go ahead and mark out the ones that I need to open up some more, and we'll go ahead and insert our nut certs and use our nut cert tool. Stay tuned. All right, everybody. We have drilled out our holes here and over here. I've already installed a nut cert to put our nut certs in. If you've never seen a nut cert tool, this is a nut cert tool. It's easy as you find the thread that matches up, you insert it, tighten it up, put your nut cert on the end of it, adjust where you want to be at, slide it in here straight. You want to make sure that you're straight. If you're off-centered, it will crimp it up off-centered. What I do is I crimp it, and then I adjust it a little bit more, and I do it till it becomes pretty much hard to squeeze. You kind of have to know or be prepared to know what you want to do and how tight you want to get it. You just don't want these nut certs spinning while it's in here, because then you have to go through a whole lot of headache to try to get it out or get it to where it'll lock back in to be able to crimp it a little bit more. So that's how you use a nut cert tool. I'm going to put the rest of these nut certs in here, and then we'll go ahead and get started with the rear fender install. All right, guys, don't panic. I didn't go ahead and jump ahead and install and not show you anything. I actually got the rear fenders bolted up with two bolts, just basically holding it on there to kind of make sure that all my other holes are lining up where the nut certs are at. So what I've done is I went in and I put those two bolts in just to kind of hold it in place. And now what I'm going to do is go through and start running all my bolts into my nut certs here. And I mean, they're all loose. And then we'll go ahead and get those tightened up. And then lastly, we'll have to drill a couple of holes for a bracket that comes with it that I showed you earlier. I think it's mounting bracket C. But just stay tuned, and I will have you a video showing you how to do everything else. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and show you where I'm at before I tighten everything up and secure it to the Jeep. So I've came in here and I went ahead and put all of these. They're all loose, and they're all loose in here. Right there, here, there. I've got them all lined up. I did that to make sure that everything was lining up before I moved forward. So right now what I've done is I got everything started. Now I want to tighten it up. And this is the next to the last step for the installation of the rear fenders. So honestly, without videoing it, I probably could have done the install in about an hour and a half. So let me go ahead and tighten these up, and I'll show you some more holes we have to drill, and then we'll move forward to completing the install. All right, so here's where we are. Final step of the install for the rear fenders is, you see these two holes right here, you'll put your bracket, I'm going to say it's mounting bracket C. It'll go in here. You'll have to mark your holes through here, drill those, and then what you'll do is you'll bring this up in there, and you'll attach them to be another bracket there to hold the fender to the body. I think it's a great idea to have that extra little bit, because you do have a gap right here, and every little bit of support is all it's going to do is just beef up the fenders. So I'm a believer in all the brackets that come with this kit. So give me just a second and I'll get it all buckled up and I'll show you what it looks like. All right. Here is the mounting bracket C put into place. You'll basically, once you drill it out like we did earlier, you'll put your button head screws in again, and then you'll run them through. I had to pop my inner fender out a little bit to get in behind it to do the backside nut, but I got it in, pushed this back into place, and it's good to go. And then of course I did my outside bolts here, and everything turns out good. So we are complete. So let's get a final picture of what these things look like. All right, YouTube, and that is it. The rear fender for Prestige Off-Road installation is complete. If you have any questions on the install, please feel free to leave me a comment below. Other than that, it's been a great one. Y'all have a good day.